We're a sales and marketing offshoring agency. We help them break down things into $5 an hour tasks versus $500 an hour value creation.
Last company I ran, best hire I made was a top-notch executive assistant, and she had free reign to come into my office and look at me and go, "Chris, what the hell are you doing?"
This was a humongous part of keeping us straight, honest, growing, organized, and so forth.
I work with my clients to say, figure out what those things are. What are you spending your time doing? And stop doing the stuff that you could pay somebody $20 an hour to do.
You're running into customers of yours every day that probably haven't even recognized that they are the bottleneck, that they are the problem. Welcome to Outsource to Profits. I have a fantastic guest. Chris, do you mind describing who you are, what you do, and how you serve the world?
Sure. Hey, my name is Chris Corgnati. I am an EOS Implementer today. I've come out of an entrepreneurial background. I've run 3 different companies in the drone manufacturing and startup world. And now I apply all those lessons learned as a coach and facilitator implementing EOS.
Fantastic. Today's conversation is around delegation, and I'll tell a quick story. A few days ago, I do a stand-up with our sales team and account management team every day, 3 o'clock. At the end of the call, a couple teammates pulled me aside and wanted to have a conversation. They could clearly tell that I've been working far too much in the business and not enough on it. We have 100 employees, and so we're scaling so quickly that I've now become the very thing that I describe to others as don't become the bottleneck. I've become the bottleneck. And they had to point it out to me. And it was in and around letting go some of the elements of the sales process and just fully embracing, moving from founder-led sales to sales-led sales. And so even somebody who's very overtly aware that that's a problem in other organizations, I get caught doing it. And so, Chris, you're running into customers of yours every day that probably haven't even recognized that they are the bottleneck, that they are the problem. Can you go back to like root cause analysis? When you're first in the board meeting with that founder, how do you help them either self-diagnose, or what do you listen for to go, oh no, like not only are you a delegation problem or a bottleneck, you can't even see that you're the problem?
Sure. You can normally tell just from the comments around the table of who's doing what and how people are spending their time. I mean, I'll go back and use myself as an example. Last company I ran, the best hire I made was a top-notch executive assistant, and she had free reign to come into my office and look at me and go, "Chris, what the hell are you doing? Like, stop, give me that. You go do the things that only you can do." I think we fall into it from a comfort level, and founders especially, because you scale from a couple of people, you're used to doing everything, and you fall into those sort of habit patterns. And when either myself or an employee, like in your case, points it out to you, it should be sort of the aha moment. And you go, okay, yep, you're right. There are things only the founder or the CEO or senior leaders can do in a company, and you got to keep them focused on doing that. I think everybody's seen probably versions of the 4-quadrant model, right? The bottom right-hand corner is the things that you hate to do and you're bad at. And the top left-hand quadrant is things you're great at and love to do, and it gives you joy and energy. And so I work with my clients to say, figure out what those things are. What are you spending your time doing? And stop doing the stuff that you could pay somebody $20 an hour to do, or you don't need to be doing, right? When you get stuff in that bottom quadrant that is low productivity, low value, and you hate doing, either stop doing it because it's not important, give it to somebody else in your company, automate it, or outsource it. Those are sort of your options. And to the extent that you free up time and energy, really, it's those things are a huge energy suck from any leader. If you're doing things that you don't want to be doing, not only are you wasting your time, but you're wasting your energy. And so we work with our clients, again, to get them in those top 2 quadrants to really focus not only what makes them happy, but what's productive and valuable for the company.
Yeah, what Chris is mentioning is a form of what's called the Eisenhower Matrix. And
exactly.
I run EOS, and I've owned 3 agencies. And every agency, EOS was a humongous part of, keeping us straight, honest, growing, organized, and so forth. So I have a partner L10, and then I have with our COO. My call right after this is my business partner and I meet with our chief operating officer, and we run an L10. And I run a daily L10 with my sales and account management team, and we use the very documents from EOS. Here are all the ideas, tasks, projects, comments from customers, everything coming in. And then there's a whole section just for Kyla, our executive assistant, for the sales team. And if it hits a certain box in that quadrant, this is all going on to Kyla's plate.
Yep.
Now, the second question that I'll have for you, okay, let's use that scenario again. You've been working with the founder. It's clear they're the bottleneck problem. How do you help reframe the problem for them? How do you help them? A lot of times you need somebody to self-recognize the problem or think the ideas themselves, think the idea they created themselves for them to make change. How do you start the path of change, especially when the thing that they're holding on to is their perceived superpower? In my instance, it's sales. And so how do you help that founder release the thing that they go from the cobbler and the artist that they are to being the CEO and founder?
Yeah, I find that getting them to focus, in an EOS, obviously you're familiar with EOS, so in your VTO, right? Start with that the 10-year target and the 3-year picture, the 1-year plan, and your 90-day rocks, and you have that conversation to say you can't scale as a single person to get where you've told me you want to go in 10 years, and you can't get to where you want to be in 3 years by yourself. Like in a sales, if you don't have a sales organization, it's literally impossible for you to achieve the goals that you lay down. So I think you frame it in a way that say, in order for me to help you achieve the goals that you've laid out for yourself and the company, here's the things that you need to focus on, because that's what only you can do. So I think you do it in that, you try and turn it into a positive, like, hey, what can we do as a team? And something you said earlier triggered with me. Team health is a big part of this, right? The fact that you have employees that are willing to call you out and say, hey, you're falling back into these patterns. We got to get you up here. You're doing stuff you shouldn't be doing. You've got an EA that can do that. That's a sign of team health. And so, we work on that. If that leadership team is confident with each other and comfortable with each other, you can have those conversations, and they'll help the founder by having those conversations. It doesn't need to come from me all the time. It's much better if it comes from the team.
So now it's tactics time. So the founder goes, okay, I'm the visionary, and here's my operator. How do I? And here's what we do with our customers, because we're a sales and marketing offshoring agency. We help them break down things into $5 an hour tasks versus $500 an hour value creation. And when they start doing audits, not only of their own time, but of the time of the sales department and the marketing department, there's this massive bucket of things that people do that are part of their job description that are really $5 an hour tasks. Let's get tactical for a moment. Give a couple best practices, tips, tricks, tactics. You're now with the founder. We're about to help them go through the evolution of delegation. What are some of the things tactically you would work with them on?
Yeah. So I think we do. You've probably done this. It's called delegate and elevate. It's using that Eisenhower matrix. If you actually record through the course of a week on a yellow legal pad on your desk, this is what you're doing, and the time that you spend doing it, and you add that up at the end, it's pretty self-evident. And most people, I think, kind of almost get embarrassed when you look at the amount of time they've wasted on $5 an hour jobs. So I think from the tactics thing is just capture the data and then show it to them and sit down and have a conversation and be like, so explain to me why you spent 3 hours this week doing X, Y, and Z. And it becomes very self-evident. Like I said, I think that's the easiest thing, because you don't have to convince them. You just show them the data and say, all right, is it from one of your direct reports, if they came in and they showed you this, is this what you would expect? And obviously the answer is no. So going through that exercise and actually making people put pen to paper and capture what they're doing over the course of a week, that gives you great insight into where you can make savings, what you can get rid of, and what you're just filling your day with.
I play a game with myself above and beyond the time audits. We're Google Suite, and so Google now in your inbox actually shows you time spent processing emails and so forth.
That's
And
scary.
yeah, and thankfully, I'm a huge believer. There's something that Dan Martell created, which is it looks like a triangle. Now I've just escaped me there's kind of 5 layers that you need to delegate out. And the first one is like administrivia. And then it kind of moves to customer support and marketing and sales and so forth. But if you like email management, I do not have Slack connected to anything on my mobile phone or computer. I do not have Google Chat on my computer or phone. I do not check or read my own emails. Basically, the only way into me is through Kyla, or my virtual assistant, because otherwise, the addictive personality of a founder is I will go down a rabbit hole forever.
Right.
You just talked about that time audit, and I was going to tell a story. I was trying to remember. How I like to think through that time audit. It usually pops into my head a few times a day when I'm doing, not thinking or working on. We're private equity backed, and I'll picture that the private equity investor was sitting next to me, because now all of a sudden I have to defend to them why I'm working on this to create enterprise value. And I kind of get this, like, these chills, like, oh my God, they'd fire me if they caught me doing these things. And it's helped me remind myself of the Pareto law that really even less than 20% of the things you do in a week yield 80% of the impact.
Absolutely.
What other words of wisdom or thoughts would you give a founder along this journey of practicing better delegation?
The leap I see a lot of people take is, as a founder, if you're in, again, we use EOS terms, right? The visionary and an integrator, you're sitting in both seats. Now you're growing, is forcing them to think through, when am I going to get an integrator? If they're truly the visionary, and again, they're the only ones that are going to do the big thinking and the doing and the work on the business, is what's the level, whether it's revenue, profit, whatever, where they've got to get an integrator. And as soon as they do that, it frees them up. Probably 90% of the people I've ever seen go through that have done that, it changes not only the business, but it changes their life. Because now, again, they're not worried about the day-to-day synchronize the activities of all the business. They check in on it every once in a while, but they've got somebody to focus on that. And that frees up, again, their time, energy, and passion to go do what's going to drive the business and what's going to make them successful and happy.
I can't stress this enough. I've owned 3 agencies, and in 2 of my first 2, I had business partners that were operators of a job function. So what they did is they freed me of a thing like customer success or sales training and so forth, but they weren't the operator that took off finance and HR and all these other major departments, where it freed me to be a true visionary. And they would flip-flop back to wanting to play the role of multi-visionary. And so we would spend our days pontificating rather than doing. And it was detrimental. I can't stress that enough. Like, what I'm seeing and why my agency now has scaled so much is my business partner wants nothing to do with being front of the house. He wants to be back of the house, and I want nothing to do with being back of the house. And it has to be a complete yin and yang. Otherwise, you either are staring at each other, navel gazing, pontificating as visionaries, or you're just being worker bees in the business. one foot in front of the other, but not having a plan of where you're going.
Right. And most people are hardwired one way or the other. That's just human nature. If you've ever, I'm sure you've read the book Rocket Fuel, right? It does the psychological profiles. There's maybe 5% of the people in the world that can be effective and are comfortable in both, but they're sort of a unicorn, right? That's just not normal. People are hardwired one way or the other. And as soon as you realize that and you get your partner, your yin and your yang lined up, and it's great for you. It's great for the company.
This has been fantastic. How do people get a hold of you if they want to know more?
Sure. Chris.Corgnati at EOS Worldwide. I'm the only Corgnati in the directory for EOS. So just go to the website. I'd love to talk to you.
Fantastic. Great having you on Outsource to Profits.
Hey, thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.